Good morning, good evening. So we'll continue on today. So of the four partings, we've already discussed the first one, parting or giving up, relinquishing attachment to this life. And the primary method to use to do that is to meditate on impermanence and death. So we spoke a lot about death and how that puts our life in perspective so that we can really think about what is important and what is not important and set our priorities very well and be very confident in our priorities. Because when we think about, what is the purpose of my life from a Dharma viewpoint, then the meditation on death really shows, well, we only have a certain amount of time, so what will, enable us to keep this priority and fulfill the purpose of our life and the, whatever we aspire for. And then meditating on impermanence in general is very, very helpful because, especially with regard to the eight worldly concerns, the thing that our mind latches on to, whether it's the wonderful thing in this life that we want or the horrible thing that we got and don't want, if we meditate that this thing is something that is momentarily impermanent, that is changing into something else and disintegrating in every moment, then it helps us not to make such a big deal out of it. Okay? If you're craving a certain kind of food and it's like fresh baked chocolate chip cookies, you walk into the kitchen, you haven't found out it's only granola yet, and you think it's chocolate chip cookies, and you start craving it. And, because the freshness, when they're first, baked and they're hot and they smell so. And then you just think, even 5 minutes later, they're going to be different because they'll have cooled off. You won't have the nice smell. And then they also start getting dried out, from the time they come out of the oven, they're starting to get dried out. By the next day, they're really dried out, So this thing that you thought was so marvelous, and I'm just using this as an example. Your example could also be, your a job, the perfect job that you want, or the perfect relationship, or whatever it is. But you start to see that whatever it is that you're craving is not going to remain that way. And then you become aware of how you exaggerated its good qualities to start with. Yeah. And similarly, when we have problems, to remember that they too will not always be there, that everything is changing, whether we want it to or not. Yeah. And so to get used to that, and, in terms of when we're attached to something, remembering no use getting really attached, because I'm going to have to separate from this. Or even if I get it, it's going to change and be different. And in terms of problems, again, not getting really bent out of shape, because this situation too is going to change and it will pass. Okay? So remembering impermanence in that way really relaxes the mind. Yeah, we don't meditate on impermanence in order to feel let down. Like, oh, my chocolate chip cookies that were going to give me so much pleasure, they're stale. Yeah. And then you start looking around and everything in samsara is going to get stale or going to fall apart or whatever it is. And then you just think, oh, there's no happiness. I might as well go to the pub and then take refuge in, drinking and drugging. That's not what the Buddha meant, sometimes it's explained like, oh, you see that everything is disintegrating, so there's nothing in it of pleasure, so it's not told like that to make us depressed, okay? It's just to see, here's the reality of it. So don't get all giddy and don't get depressed, because the whole thing's going to change, okay? So don't make impermanence something that makes you depressed, because you're still seeking the happiness of this life, but you can't get it, so you're depressed. But we use impermanence to remember, oh, when I'm seeking the happiness of this life, it's really futile, because whatever I get is going to change. But there's another kind of happiness. That's the happiness that comes through spiritual practice. That's the joy that comes through nirvana, through attaining full awakening. Okay, so rather than seek the grade F happiness of chocolate chip cookies, seek the grade triple A happiness of, spiritual fulfillment. Okay, that's the way to use the meditation. Okay, so don't use it to just feel, oh, everything's useless, everything's worthless. Yeah, and then you head for the pot shop or the pub. That's not the purpose. Okay. And so then we also started the second one, attachment to the three realms of samsara. So yesterday I spoke a little bit about the 6 kinds of dukkha. Dukkha meaning unsatisfactory conditions. That dukkha is actually the first of the 4 truths of the Aryas. And today we'll continue on from that, talking a little bit more about that, but then also going into the cause of our dukkha. So we'll think about how to abandon that. When we speak about how interrelated we are with other living beings and dependent on their kindness, sometimes we're quite limited in the scope of living beings that we think that we're dependent on, thinking maybe of our own family or close friends like that. Or sometimes we think that some people's lives are worth more than other people's lives because they're rich or famous or whatever. But one thing that this pandemic has really shown us is getting us to look at what we consider essential workers. So the essential workers have to work during the pandemic. And those are not the CEOs of big conglomerate companies. Yeah. Who are the essential workers that are keeping everything up and running while everybody shelters in place? It's the home health care aides, the different healthcare workers that take aside from the doctors and nurses, the orderlies and so forth that work in the hospitals and care for people, the garbage collectors, the sanitation people, the clerks in stores, the people who restock the stores, people who do government jobs in offices, who are not the ones who make the policies, but they're the ones that are trying to process all the unemployment checks. So it's interesting that among the essential workers, most of them are the ones that get paid hourly wage at best, often less than hourly wage, have no health care insurance themselves, have no paid sick leave, let alone paid vacation. So it's interesting, isn't it, that the people that we depend on the most, who must work in the most dangerous situation when the rest of the people can shelter at home, is the people that are not adequately recompensed for the work that they do, and who are often not respected for their jobs. So when we're thinking about our dependence on other living beings, we have to think about these people, actually first and foremost, because they're the ones that are making sure that everybody has food. The immigrants who are picking fruits and vegetables, who are working at food processing companies, who get paid very little. We're incredibly dependent on their kindness. And we need to appreciate their kindness and respect the jobs they do and provide for them well so that they have adequate resources for their families. So thinking about the kindness of others isn't just a spiritual practice to make us feel good. It's something that we have to really integrate in our minds and act on. And so thinking of these people and all sentient beings, and how we're all want happiness and not suffering, then let's make a strong determination to use our precious human life wisely, progress on the path to Buddhahood. And before we've become a Buddha and after we've become a Buddha, do whatever we can to improve the lot of other living people. Because it's only the least we can do, considering what we've received from them. So some people are beginning to think, what kind of world do we want to live in when we come out of this pandemic? And will we ever really come out of the pandemic? Or will the coronavirus always kind of be around in the background, especially since people who are asymptomatic can carry it and infect others? But it's really shown us, I think, a lot about the inequality in our society and who is an essential worker and who do we depend on the most and who do we treat the poorest. Yeah, it's really outrageous when you think about it, isn't it? Okay. So I think this is, one area where we have to put our spiritual practice into, we have to walk our talk, yeah? And advocate for people as a way of really repaying their kindness and acknowledging how dependent we are, how dependent all of society is on what they do. Yeah. So some of you have heard me talk about the time when I was in Tel Aviv during the strike of the garbage collectors. Whew. That really made me appreciate garbage collectors. And after that, every time the garbage collector came to the apartment building I was living in Seattle, I would thank him because I really saw, the kindness of the garbage collectors and the kindness of the guys who do the electricity and who make the roads, And then here, we see just even the bus boys and the clerks and the people who stack, who fill the shelves, and we cannot live on our own, can we? There's no way. We like to fancy ourselves as, individuals. Yeah. But we can't even take care of ourselves properly. Mm-hmm. So this really fits in with the meditation on the kindness of others, doesn't it? Yeah. Exactly what the Buddha was talking about. Okay, so there were just 2 questions from yesterday. So one person asked, how is laziness related to the 8 worldly concerns? Well, it sure is, isn't it? Yeah. Laziness, in relationship to the 8 worldly concerns, is, one type of laziness, is just a laziness to apply the antidotes. No. Especially when we're attached to something, you know, there's a certain kind of excitement or happiness in our mind of, I'm going to get this and it's going to be good and I'm going to feel happy. And who wants to apply an antidote to that? Because it makes me happy to anticipate getting something I like. So who wants to meditate on impermanence? And that the person I'm attracted to is, if they live that long, one day going to be old and wrinkled and 80 or 90 years old, or my chocolate chip cookies are all stale, or the new Lamborghini, is that the car? Lamborghini. Yeah. The new red sports car that I got, is going to be out of, it won't be not out of stock, but next year it won't be the hot model because it'll be a year old already. Okay. Huh?
Out of style.
Out of style. Okay. Yeah. And so, if we don't want to, we're lazy to apply the antidote in those situations. Similarly, when we're unhappy because of the other 4 of the 8, we didn't get what we want or we got what we didn't want, we get so stuck in our unhappiness, so stuck in our anger, that again, we're lazy and don't want to apply the antidote because I have a right to be angry. The universe did not give me what I wanted. Yeah, and this person harmed me and I'm not going to let it go. Yeah. So we get so fixated in whatever state of joy or dejection, that we don't really want to apply the antidote. And we'd rather, it's almost like we're saying, I'd rather be miserable because I'm going to cling on to this grievance and I'm going to cling on to the subject that's supposed to make me happy, even though I know it's not going to. Okay? And so that's where the laziness comes in. And it's totally self-defeating, isn't it? Yeah? It's like we're so eager to suffer. Yeah? It's kind of, that attitude, how often we shoot ourselves in the foot. It's amazing, It's kind of like the people who are staging the demonstrations now, who say, I want the society to be open. We've got to restart our economy. And it's almost as if they're saying, I want the freedom to catch the coronavirus. Yeah. It's, yeah. Because they're doing the protests, and even in the protests, they're not keeping the distance or wearing masks. And of course, if everything starts up really quickly, the outbreak's gonna be much worse. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the product of ignorance that we'll get into. And I may be using those people as the example, but we have ignorance too, except our ignorance is actually wisdom. It's not ignorance. Yeah, right? Just like, the protesters feel, we're not being ignorant, we're being wise. So yeah, this is the thing. We can't always tell ignorance from wisdom. Can we? Yeah. Okay, then the other question from yesterday was, how can I become convinced, if it's ever possible, that my belief in rebirth is not a creation or self-persuasion of my own mind in order to bring hope and avoid despair in this life? Same thing for those believing in heaven and Christianity, So, okay. Meaning that if I believe in the continuation of my mind, death and the termination of this life is not so dramatic. Therefore, I choose to adhere consciously or not to this hypothesis because it makes me feel good. Okay, so what he's asking about is, I can't really prove something, and so can I just believe it because it makes me feel good and it gives me hope? In the case of rebirth, okay, because this question began with how can I how can I come to believe in rebirth? If you follow the logical arguments that I explained last week, I think it was in the second talk, maybe, first talk, second talk. If you follow those logical arguments about everything having a cause, and that unless there's something that can stop the cause, that cause will produce a result, really think about that, because if you see how one moment of mind produces another moment of mind, and there's nothing that can stop that, because death of the body stops the continuation of the live body, and the body then decays. It has its its future results. But death of the body cannot stop the continuity of consciousness, because each moment of mind depends on the previous moment of mind as its substantial cause. Okay, so if you really think about that over time, then you can gain some, really valid understanding about rebirth that isn't just designed to, make you feel better. Okay. Okay. Now to get back to attachment to the three realms of samsara. Okay, and the antidote, reflecting on the faults of samsara. So, sometimes when we study the faults of samsara, it sounds very much like just the faults that we're experiencing in this life. But from a Buddhist viewpoint, there's not only the human realm of existence, there's the animal realm, which we can see. There's, the hellish realms, the hungry ghost realms. And there's also what we call the upper realms, the form and formless realms. So in the form realm, people are born there by power of their attaining certain levels of meditative concentration. And it's called form because they do have a body, but it's not kind of this kind of body. It's much more ethereal. But again, they have a limited lifespan, just as long as the karmic cause for that rebirth lasts. And then above that is the formless realm, where the samadhi is even deeper, and that's the cause that how people are born there. And again, very long lives, but it's not permanent, or it's not everlasting, it's not eternal. Okay, when that karma runs out, kaplunk, down to probably the desire realm somewhere again. So our realm is called the desire realm for obvious reasons, because we're we have so many external objects, or seemingly inherently existent external objects to desire. Yeah. And the form and formless realms were born there because of having gained, very strong samadhi, different states of samadhi. So those two realms have less overt suffering. Yeah, they don't have the very painful suffering that we have in the desire realm. And so, some people want to be born there. But the idea is, even if you're born there, and it's wonderful for as long as that long life lasts, again, too, the energy is going to run out and you're going to find yourself, back in the desire realm. And not necessarily even in a good rebirth in the desire realm. It could be that some negative karma that has been, in the form of a seed in your mind stream all the time when you were born in the form and formless realms, it now ripens, and then, you're born as an animal or a hungry ghost or who knows what. Okay? So, it's important to understand about the form and formless realms, because as spiritual practitioners, developing concentration is something that is really important to us. And many people, when they begin to meditate, we see how crazy our mind is. And our first conclusion is, I need to learn how to concentrate better. Okay. So yes, we do need to learn how to concentrate better. However, we should not do that, develop that ability at the expense of gaining the Buddhist worldview and understanding the four truths and understanding the defects of samsara. Why? Because if we don't think of the defects of samsara and we just think of the bliss of concentration, we can attain those higher rebirths in those higher realms. But it's not liberation, and we're going to fall down again. Okay? So this is something that our teachers, want us to be aware of, because I haven't experienced it, but they say that the states of concentration are so blissful and you feel so happy that who wants to meditate on the four truths? Who wants to meditate on the suffering of sentient beings when that detracts from the bliss you're experiencing in your concentration? So that's how people get stuck in those rebirths and don't progress to attain liberation. Also, it's important to understand that the practices to develop concentration are not strictly Buddhist practices. Okay? They are done by the Hindus, by some Christians. So all of those techniques for developing concentration, they're not a uniquely Buddhist practice. Only if we do those practices with refuge in the three jewels and with a motivation, for liberation, awakening, then they become Buddhist practices that are beneficial for us. Otherwise, they become feel-good practices. Okay? So that's why it's always important, come back to the basic foundation things in the Dharma so that we always remember we're in samsara, and samsara is not fun, even if we're born in the form and formless realms where you can abide blissed out for eons. Yeah, because they say that some non-Buddhist practitioners attain those states of concentration, and they think that they've attained liberation. And then when they die, and all the karmic visions start happening to them, and the grasping at the self just goes crazy of, I'm dying, then they feel, I practiced the wrong path. I thought I had attained liberation, and I didn't. So my whole spirit, the path I followed was all wrong. Now, that's not a happy way to die. Okay. So that's why our teachers really say, yes, develop your concentration, but don't make that your primary practice. Yeah. Develop all the understandings of the stages of the path. Develop your mind training practices. Yeah. Because this holiness emphasizes often that our mind is very complex. So we need more than one kind of meditation technique to work with all the different aspects of our mind. Okay? So don't seek rebirth in those realms. It's nice for a while, but it's difficult to practice the Dharma there. Yeah. In the formless realm, you are so blissed out that, who cares about the Dharma? In the form realm, some beings do practice the Dharma. That's where you have the, Brahma, Ishvara, Shiva, Ganesh, all those, the Hindu deities. Some people, might put, so the other deities from other religions kind of, are seen as form realm beings. So they're respected for having that higher rebirth, but they're not beings who can lead us to liberation. And if we're born amongst them, we too are still in samsara. Okay, so when they talk about wanting to be free of samsara, it's of all three realms, not just the desire realm. We have to think also of all three realms and want to be free from all of them. Okay, that's what we mean by having renunciation of samsara. We don't want the dukkha of any of those three realms, and we aspire for liberation or awakening. So also, if we're going to overcome samsara, we have to look at what the causes of samsara are. So this is another vast topic. Okay. I really encourage people to read the volumes from the Library of Wisdom and Compassion that His Holiness Dalai Lama has done, because this goes into a lot of detail on all these topics that we've talked about. So while I'm not able to talk, we have short time to talk about all the causes of samsara. Yeah. I thought just to cover what's called the 6 root afflictions. So these are kind of the strongest ones that are the roots, they're the roots that they say we have 84,000 afflictions, okay? So if you boil them all down, you can pretty much put them into these 6, but there's many of them. Okay, so in talking about the 6 root afflictions, some of our old favorites come, the oldies but goodies, and it's not the music that we really like. It's the music of attachment. That's number 1 on the chart. Yeah. How we get stuck in samsara, attachment, a clinging, yeah? So it's a mental state. It's not the behavior. The behavior is the karma. This is the mental factor of attachment that is based on exaggerating the good qualities of someone or something and then not wanting to be separated from it. Okay, so I remember there's a song that says, "Love makes the world go round." Remember that song? And it's more attachment makes the world go round, because attachment, craving, is what causes one rebirth after the next. Okay? So not only attachment to things in this life that motivate, negative actions, but also craving and its good pal clinging. They arise at the time of death, and when we realize that we're losing this body and this identity, then we crave it, we cling to having another one, and that is what makes the karma ripen that propels us into another rebirth. Okay, so that's why, attachment makes the world go round. It's that cause that fertilizes the karma, attachment in the form of craving. There we go. Okay, second of the 6 root afflictions, our other old friend. Yeah, anger. So the word anger actually includes a lot of different emotions. It's the root of, when I said it's a root affliction, it's the root of hatred, irritation, annoyance, rage, belligerence, spite. What else? Being outraged, frustration, vengeance, grudge holding. It's the root of all of those things. And it too is based on exaggeration, this time of the negative or undesirable qualities of someone or something, that propels us to, get rid of it. And so we may actively strike against someone or something because we're mad. We also can, quote, quote, strike against it by, totally backing away, shutting down, and becoming like an ice cube. In other words, throwing a pity party in which we nurture our animosity. Yeah? Anybody throw pity parties? Yeah. Pity parties, they're so lovely. Yeah. I'm the star of a pity party. My birthday comes only once a year. I can only be a star then. But a pity party, I can be the star of every day. And the song that goes with our pity party is, "Poor me, the world is unfair to me. Poor me." Yeah. And we just shut down and we don't talk to anybody. Yeah. But all the time, we want somebody to come to us and say, "What's wrong?" I mean, why do we throw the pity party? What do we really want? We want somebody to come and show us some sympathy. But when somebody comes and says, "Are you upset? Are you unhappy?" No. Just leave me alone. Oh, are you recognizing some familiar behaviors? Yeah? So that's anger. Mm. Then another oldie but goodie. Okay. Ignorance. So ignorance is actually the root of the other 5. Okay. Ignorance is the big chief, but ignorance plays dumb. Okay. Ignorance is there beneath the surface, but we don't notice it. Because what ignorance apprehends is our lifeblood. You know, there's different kinds of ignorance, but the ignorance that's the root of samsara apprehends true existence. And that's the way we've always apprehended everything. It appears truly existent, we assent, we grasp onto it that way. And so it's there all the time, so much so that we don't even recognize it. That's what I meant by it's, kind of it's the quiet one that lurks under the table, but is behind the other five. Okay, so this is the one in the 12 links of dependent arising that is the first link, ignorance. Okay. Then, more oldies but goodies. So we have attachment, anger, ignorance, arrogance. This one's sometimes translated as pride, but pride in English can have double meanings. So that's why I choose to say arrogance instead of pride. Because one English meaning of pride, of course, is being stuck up. But another meaning is you're proud of yourself because you accomplished something you wanted to. Or somebody else is rejoicing in what you did and they say, I'm proud of you. So that's a totally different kind of pride. We are not talking about that. That's actually rejoicing, I think. So in order not to get them confused, I translate the one of pride as arrogance, okay? So within arrogance, there's different kinds of arrogance. So the first one is the usual one we think of, that I'm better than people who are worse than me. Yeah, and then I'm better than people who are equal in ability to me. Then I'm better than people who are actually more qualified than me. Then there's one that's called the conceit of I am. This one is deadly. This one's the one, and this one's very close to the ignorance that's the root of samsara. And this one is just the conceit of I am. I exist. Yeah. Have you ever experienced that? Where you just sit there and feel, I exist. Okay. Well, it's really poisonous, that one. Okay, so the conceit of I am. Then there's the arrogance of being almost as good as somebody else who's really great. Or some people describe this one as I am high because I associate with somebody who's very high status. Okay, so it could be either of these, I'm almost as good as Van Gogh. I'm almost as learned as, the Geshe Larampa, but they just didn't happen to recognize me. Or there's the pride of, I follow the best teacher. Yeah. I am employed by this fantastic company. So I'm not the best, but I'm the best in association with somebody who's really great. Okay. Then there's the pride of being proud of our negative actions. Yeah, based on not understanding how cause and effect work and not being able to discern virtue from non-virtue and what's wise and what's not. And we're proud of our negativities. Okay. If I can just give an example of it. I mean, I'm sorry, I have to use this person as an example. This is a real classic. So our dear president, yesterday at his, his daily rally, his daily rally. Because one of the scientists in the government found that when the coronavirus was exposed to UV rays, when it was very hot outside, when it was in the direct sunlight, when the humidity was high, that it lost its power much more quickly than when it's inside in a dark environment. Okay, so this scientist had just said that as part of the daily information. And then the dear president said, oh, that's wonderful. How about seeing, and the scientist also was saying that, using bleach and Lysol and isopropyl alcohol, that these killed the virus very, very quickly and were very good disinfectants. So that's what the scientist said. So great. Then the president says, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get the UV light inside the body? And getting these cleaning agents, can't we get them inside the body to destroy the virus?
Poison control center is going to be very busy.
Exactly. So they notice that all of a sudden people are Googling these products, Lysol, isopropyl alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and bleach, and Tide has some kind of detergent, cleansing detergent in little like pods and things that are easy. You can, swallow them down. So you don't swallow them down. But, people were thinking, if I can get those cleaning agents inside my body, I won't get them. All these people started Googling it. So, like you said, the Center for Poison Control. Our friend Alex works, for that. We should see what he thinks about this. And then all of a sudden, then Lysol comes out, Tide, all these companies come out with, our product is not in any circumstances to be ingested or injected or anything. And they, these companies, thank goodness the companies have some, put this out, because otherwise, think of the lawsuits they would have gotten. And, but then the White House says, he was misinterpreted. Anyway, but this is an excellent example of being proud of our mistaken actions. It's like, he said, no, I was just suggesting that we look into this kind of thing. Yeah. So, it's that mind that never wants to admit that we erred, and that turns our negativities in our mind into something to be proud of. So that's this kind of arrogance. Yes.
Venerable Tenzin's online saying that doctors on Twitter already report that they have patients who tried drinking bleach yesterday and have internal burns.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. So, so this is also, if the Buddha said to us, check what I say, don't just believe it. If we should check the Buddha's word, then we should check the president's also. And we should check everything, you know, and not just have blind faith. I mean, this is so sad, isn't it? Whew. Who said that, Venerable? Venerable Tenzin? Huh? Okay. From Russia. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So, arrogance. Next one, doubt. So here, it isn't just any kind of doubt. It's the doubt that's inclined towards the wrong conclusion. Okay? So it's, the doubt that's inclined towards the wrong conclusion. It's not, it's one step up from wrong views. Wrong views is, I don't believe that. Doubt is, I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist. Okay? So it's a little bit better than wrong view. Wrong view is stubborn. You're not going to listen to anybody. Doubt is, 90% stubborn, okay? But it's a step up. But this kind of doubt can really destroy our practice, because then, rather than practice anything, we sit and go round and around in circles about doubt. So we doubt ourselves. Am I capable of practicing? Yes, I know the Buddha taught that every sentient being has Buddha nature, but somehow I don't have it, so I'm incapable. Okay? So doubting our own ability, doubting the path. Does this path actually work? Doubting the result. Is awakening even possible? I don't think so, because seems like we're hardwired to be selfish and closed-minded. So this kind of doubt really impedes us from learning and from practicing, because we're just kind of stuck in doubt. So something you have to look at with doubt is there's different kinds of doubt. And here we're pinpointing the afflictive doubt, okay? There's another kind of doubt that is actually curiosity. I want to know about how rebirth works. I'm not quite sure it exists, but I want to hear the argument and understand it. I want to know about, if biologically we have this instinct for life preservation and to cherish ourselves above others. I want to know how it's possible to reverse that and cherish others more than self. So this is a curiosity. Okay, it's a doubt that's a curiosity. I don't believe it, but I want to learn because I kind of hope that it's true. That kind of curiosity is very good. And that prompts us to ask questions. Okay? Then there's another kind of a doubt. Yeah, and this is the one to be really, in addition to the afflictive doubt, this one to be really aware of. The doubt that doesn't really want an answer. Okay? I really doubt that we can become Buddhas. Then you go to a teaching, and when you're listening to the teaching about Buddha nature, about exchanging self with others, so really showing how you can train the mind and become a different kind of person. All the time you're listening with the ears of, yeah, I bet. How can I tear this argument apart? So it's the kind of doubt that doesn't really want to understand. It's a cynical doubt. That's what it is. It's a cynical doubt of like, yeah, I bet. How can I tear this down? You think I'm going to believe that? That's just superstition. Yet you go to teachings, with this kind of arrogance of, I know better than everybody else because I know what you're teaching is all wrong. Okay? So that's another kind of arrogance.
Yeah.
Doubt, sorry. But it's a kind of arrogance too, isn't it? It's kind of like half and half. Or no, maybe both. It's double dose. Yeah. And then the sixth one is afflictive views. Okay. So afflictive views, you have 5 kind of afflictive views. Yeah. So these are different kind of erroneous views, erroneous views. So one of them is that we call grasping at a personal identity. So this is the one that thinks that grasping the I is truly existent. Then there's one another view where you think that either it's a wrong view of either the I is inherently existent or it doesn't exist at all. Okay? So kind of an attachment to that kind of view, an either or view. Then there is the pride of having those, Then there's wrong views. I'm not giving them in the right order, but I think you'll get it. And then there's the wrong view that holds your other wrong views as supreme. And then there's the wrong view of precepts and practices, where you have the wrong view of what the path is. Okay, or the afflictive view, I should say, of what the path is. So those 5 are in the heading of afflictive views, which is the 6th of the root afflictions. Okay, so the purpose of going over those, although I did it quite briefly, is so that we become aware of when these are manifest in our mind, and when we listen to them and follow them and encourage them and don't apply the antidote to them, because these are the ones that keep us cycling again and again and again. Okay. There's one passage in Shantideva's text that I really like, where he talks about how, people are so eager to destroy our enemy. Yeah. Again, the dear Prez threatened to bomb any Iranian boats that came near our boats. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but why not start a war while we're at it? So we always think the enemy is on the outside. If we can destroy Iran and destroy North Korea and destroy the person who snitched on us and destroy the person who cheated on us and destroy the person who betrayed our trust. We always think the enemy is outside, And Shantideva says, it's useless to destroy external enemies because they're going to die anyway. They're living beings in samsara, and we just got done talking about impermanence and death. These beings are going to die without us having to do anything. So why are we trying to kill them? We should destroy what is our real enemy. that hasn't gone away, that has been afflicting us since beginningless time. Because these enemies that disturb us now, they're only enemies of this lifetime. In other lifetimes, they've been kind to us, and they're going to die all by themselves without us having to kill them. But the real enemy that is the source of our trauma and our misery and our dukkha is the afflictions. Yeah, those are the real enemy. If we want to destroy the enemy, we should learn the antidotes to these afflictions and apply them. And I remember the first time, I was studying this text and I heard that. It was like, wow, he's right. Yeah, I had never thought about it that, but he's absolutely right. Let's hear it for Shantideva, because he really pinpointed, what the true enemy is that is disturbing us, and it's not an external one, it's an internal one. So that doesn't mean we should hate ourselves. It means we should learn the antidote to those afflictions and apply them in our meditation. Okay, we're going to speed ahead to the third one now. Okay, the third one is attachment to your own self-interest. Actually, I should, it's okay. I'll read the whole text once later on. Okay, attachment to our own self-interest. Drakpa Gyaltsen has a beautiful verse about that. Okay, actually, I should read what Drakpa Gyaltsen says about the second one, attachment to the three realms of existence. So I won't explain that, or I will try and restrain myself so that we can go on to the next one, but at least to read that. Okay? So, Drakpa Gyaltsen, Nupa Rigzentrak's teacher, says, to seek nirvana, the state beyond sorrow, relinquish clinging to the three realms, desire, form, and formless realms. To relinquish clinging to the three realms, reflect on the defects of cyclic existence. So he's going through the three kinds of dukkha here. So first is the dukkha of pain. This includes the sufferings of the three lower realms. If you contemplate these well, a wise kind of fear, recognizing the danger, will arise, because if ripened upon you, these kind of rebirths are indeed unbearable. Not gathering the virtuous karma that overcomes these, and continuing to cultivate the fields of lower realms by not keeping good ethical conduct, not following the law of cause and effect. Drakpa Gyaltsen socks it to us and says, wherever such conduct exists, spit on it. So he's not being polite. It's like, you don't want to stop yourself from suffering, and you're glued to your afflictions. That's what you should do to your afflictions. Then, second one, the second kind of dukkha. Reflect on the dukkha of change. From higher realms, you can fall to the lower realms. The god Indra can be born as a mere earthling. Sun and moon can turn into darkness. The universal monarch can be born as a servant. These can be known by means of scripture, but cannot be perceived by ordinary beings. Therefore, observe your own experience of human-level changes. You can be the president's lawyer and wind up in prison. You can be the president's, chief of campaign manager and wind up in prison. Okay, you can be the president's chief of staff and get fired, and out of a job like that. I mean, very good examples, aren't they? Yeah, human level changes. A rich man turns into a poor man. A confident one changes into an anxious one. Many people unite together as one. That's the one that we need. This list of phenomena is inconceivable. Then the third kind of dukkha. If you reflect on the dukkha of conditioning, karmic deeds are endless. I love the next few lines. You suffer with too much. You suffer with too little. You suffer if rich. You suffer if starved. Samsara is thoroughly unsatisfactory. Okay, now this one is especially for particular people. Everybody, but there's particular people who are really expert in this one. We waste our lives in preparations and plans. While in preparation, we all die. Even in death, there is no end to preparations and making plans. Yeah, because we begin preparations for the next life. So everybody who loves making plans and preparations is never in using the opportunity they have at present, because their mind is always somewhere else in the future. Listen to this. So then, this is what Drukpa Gyaltsen says, spit on those who continue to cling to this mass of suffering called cyclic existence. So again, yeah. Okay. When freed of this clinging, you go beyond sorrow. In other words, you attain nirvana. When gone beyond sorrow, you attain happiness. Because you're free of the afflictions, you're free of the karma, the polluted karma, so you're free of dukkha. Freedom from these two clingings is the experience of expanse. Okay, now he starts with the third one. Okay, your individual freedom alone is of no value. What? I'm American. Give me liberty or give me death. My freedom is important. Some of the protesters in Michigan had signs when they were protesting just recently the continued shelter-in-place instructions, signs saying, give me liberty or give me death. Huh?
Give them both now.
Give them both?
They can have the liberty to have death now.
Yeah. It's like they're, yes, you can have death, and you very well might. Yeah. Okay. So, and to think, so that's just a very gross example. Your individual freedom is of no value. We live in a society interrelated with everybody else. Now, and we have to consider everybody's needs. So when I hear people talk about Second Amendment rights, those of you who are listening from Europe, they're the rights in the American Constitution to own guns. Okay. I say I have a right to live in a peaceful environment where I don't feel threatened. So the Constitution may give you the right of a gun, and that actually depends a lot on constitutional interpretation. Yeah, because there was a case maybe, 30 years ago or something, that opened it up to the whole proliferation of guns that we see now. But what about the rest of us? Don't we have the right to live in a society where we don't have to be afraid of, people carrying AK-47s down the street into the grocery store? Yeah. So I think, we need, when he says your individual freedom is of no value, he's talking about spiritual freedom. But I think it applies to freedom in society too. Yeah. And that we have to be considerate of other people, and that sacrificing some of our wants and desires, for in order to create peace and harmony, isn't it worth it? Yeah. I mean, if we're sacrificing something that we feel, we shouldn't sacrifice our values. Yeah. We shouldn't sacrifice when we know something is the right thing to do. Okay. But when we know that we're doing something out of attachment, or when we know that it's just a matter of preference, I like the spatula here, you like it there, I like the noodles cooked well, you don't, why can't we give up our own preference and our own freedom to create harmony? Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very noble thing to do, because harmony is valuable. Okay. But again, I'm going to repeat, I'm not talking about giving up wisdom and giving up our values and principles. Okay. I'm not talking about when you want to go to a Dharma retreat and your friend says, "Oh, there's a great double feature. Let's go to the movies and then we can, go out to the pub." I'm not talking about giving up your wish to go to the Dharma retreat in order to go to the movies and go get drunk. That's not something virtuous. I'm talking about, giving up my chocolate chip cookies so somebody else can have them. Or giving up my chocolate chip cookies because it's granola, and granola is more nourishing, and still, if they don't add all the sugar that they do in commercial granola, Okay. So, looking for the good of everybody. Yeah. What is good for everybody? Because if we don't take care of others, we're going to live in a fractious society like we live in right now, where people just argue with each other all the time. But if we can do things that encourage people to be open-minded and not judgmental and look out for the common good, I think we will be a lot happier. And this is why His Holiness says, if you want to be selfish, be wisely selfish and take care of others. I mean, he's really right when you look at it. He's completely right, And this is also the reason to be aware of climate change and to work against pollution. Yeah. We may all be dead and gone, by when the time of some predictions occur. But actually, some of the predictions, they're coming really soon, and we may still be alive. But even if we aren't, don't we owe it to other human beings? Shouldn't we care about other human beings? Aren't their lives more important than our economy? I'm not saying the economy should be flat. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you can have either preposterous growth plus pollution, or you can have an economy that functions without excess, without using more than our fair share of resources, And so what? We don't trade in our phones every year to get the latest model. Some of you your jaw's gonna drop. I'm saying, use your computer like 7 years. How old is my computer? I just traded it in because it wasn't working. I think it was about 7 years old. Yeah, 7 or 8. I got to trade in my computer every year. I got to get a new phone every year. get a new car, get a new this, get a new that. Remove all the regulations. We're in the middle of a pandemic that affects the lungs, and we're removing regulations to control soot from factories. We're harming ourselves and we're harming others. So this isn't just, whatever he's saying in terms of spiritual practice, it applies right now too. Yeah, without a doubt. And some people are going to write me letters and say, you're a nun. Yeah, you shouldn't talk about controversial topics like this. Yeah, you should be praying. Yeah. Yeah. And His Holiness says, prayer isn't enough. We need action. Yeah. His Holiness, he gives the example of God and Buddha having a conversation, looking down at all these people praying, dear God, please stop climate change. Dear Buddha, please lessen the pollution. And God and Buddha are looking down at all the people praying to them. And together they say, hey, you guys created the cause. You fix it. Why are you praying to us when it's your responsibility? Okay, so this is important. Okay. I get on my soapbox from time to time. Yeah, bear with me. I've been invited to participate in a webinar about gun control for youth activists. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. Young, bright, excited minds who want to learn, who care about the world. That's going to be fun. Okay, my nose will ever stop itching. Okay, so Drukpa Gyaltsen says, your individual freedom alone is of no value. Beings of the entire three realms are your parents. Okay, whether you got along with your parents or not, whether there was abuse in your family or not, the bottom line is our parents gave us this life. Yeah, and they did their best to take care of us. And when they couldn't take care of us, they made sure other people could take care of us. And our parents are limited beings. They aren't perfect. Why do we expect them to be perfect? Yeah. Love them for who they are. Forgive them for being a human being with imperfections, just as you want other people to forgive you for being a human being with imperfections. Okay, beings of the entire three realms are your parents. So that means everybody. Okay, that means everybody. Yeah, Mitch McConnell has been our parent. He wasn't in the rebirth as Mitch McConnell. Donnie has been our mother and father. All these sentient beings, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, all of them have been our parents at one time or another. And as our parents, they've been kind to us. Okay? And look at the suffering they're either experiencing now or will experience because of the negativities they've created. We don't need to wish harm on anybody. People create harm for themselves. And what kind of person are we that we wish others suffering? Okay. So the people, I think, who create a lot of harm are the ones who are really worthy of compassion. because they're creating so many causes for misery. Drukpa Gyaltsen continues, spit on those who leave their parents behind in the storm of dukkha and seek their own happiness. That's what he says. So that's a good place to stop for today. Yeah. Another thing to spit on. Okay. I'll read just the next verse too, and then next week, then we'll go into more about bodhicitta. But Drukpa Gyaltsen says here, and this is the taking and giving meditation, may the sufferings of the three realms ripen upon me. May sentient beings take away all my merit. Yeah, may I give away all my merit to sentient beings. Yeah, this is an old translation.
We say receive.
Yeah. Okay. May all sentient beings become fully awakened.